Bet this football season with MyBookie. Use promo code Gators and get a 50% match with your first deposit. Only at MyBookie.
Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters, and you can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC, coming at you in my wife's car in South Carolina. We're on the go, on vacation, but had to find a quiet place while on the go. A lot of dogs, a lot of kids in the house, so I've been relegated to the car to record this podcast for you guys. So hey, that's how it has to be done sometimes. How it has to be done. But here we go. Cotton Bowl preview. Oklahoma, Florida, Oklahoma, of course, coming up on Wednesday, and around the holidays, don't really have a guest this time from the Oklahoma side to give us their point of view on this game. Just a strict, kind of short Oklahoma preview here. What they've done this year, who to look out for, all that stuff here for the Cotton Bowl coming up. But before we get there, remember you can find Gators Breakdown at news4jax.com/Gators Breakdown. You'll find all the Gators Breakdown episodes there, as well as News4Jax coverage of the Gators. Please share, rate, and review the show on YouTube. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, really helps us out. Or if you just want the audio version, check us out on your favorite podcast platform and follow us on social media. Gators Breakdown is on Twitter and Facebook at Gators Breakdown. So let's get into this breakdown of Oklahoma, what they've done this season, who to look out for, and they've won 7 games in a row. So long trend, late season success for the Sooners in each of the last 6 seasons. Oklahoma's won at least 5 consecutive games heading into its bowl game. So 7 straight in 2015. 9 straight in 2016, 8 in 2017, 7 in 2018, and then last year when they made the college football playoff as well, going into that game with 5 wins in a row. So this year it's 7 after they started the season 1-2. Bounced back pretty good as they got some players back and started winning some games. One of 2 Power 5 programs, Clemson is the other, that ranks in the top 20 nationally in both total offense and total defense. Sooners average 475.8 yards per game to rank 18th in the country and give up 333.6 yards per contest to rank 20th. Florida ranks 10th in total offense at 508 yards per game and 62nd in total defense with 404 yards per game. When you ever would have thought in recent college football that Oklahoma would have a better defense than Florida? Crazy. Crazy to think about. And all the high-flying offenses that we saw in the Big 12 in recent years contributing to Oklahoma's defensive lapses a bit. But the SEC looked at the Big 12 this year with high-flying offenses and the defenses not being able to catch up. So pretty reversal of fortunes there for Florida and Oklahoma. Oklahoma coming into this game with a better defense. So they've been known for years for offense, of course, but they're a balanced team this season, much improved on defense than they have been in recent years, as I just said. They've held their last 4 opponents. Kansas with 9 points, Oklahoma State with 13 points, Baylor with 14 points, Iowa State with 21 points. That's a combined 57 points for the last 4 opponents. The last time Oklahoma held Big 12 opponents to 57 points or fewer over a 4-game stretch was in 2015. So they held for the last 4 an average of 303.8 yards per game. So, this is kind of similar how we were talking about Alabama's defense before the SEC championship game, and then Florida goes out and puts yards up and points up on a good defense anyway. So I think you kind of look at it that way too. A good offense is going to score points no matter who the defense is. We've seen Florida versus Georgia and Alabama this year, 2 of the better defenses in the country, still go out there and put up 500, 600 yards, still go put up near 50 points a game against those defenses. So the thing is now, no Kyle Pitts, maybe some more offensive weapons not playing. Grimes, Tony, have to look out for those guys as well. And what would the motivation be here? Will it play a factor? But the offense is ready to go. They're going to put up some points and some yards. Oklahoma will be without one of their best playmakers and starters in the secondary, cornerback Trey Brown. He's opted out of the Cotton Bowl. So kind of helps, the Gator offense there a bit when they could be also missing some of their own playmakers. But still for Oklahoma, still a defense that's been putting together a good season. Florida entered bowl season with the country's #1 passing attack, of course. 388.4 yards per game, 45 touchdowns. Both good for the national lead there for the Gators. Kyle Trask, first in passing offense, 375 yards a game, 43 passing touchdowns. And it'll be facing an Oklahoma defense that ranks 4th in the country among teams that have played more than 4 games by averaging 3.6 sacks per game and registered more interceptions than it has allowed touchdown passes. Oklahoma has 13 interceptions on the season, and it has allowed only 11 touchdown passes. Sooners have recorded at least 1 interception in their last 5 games. They have 10 during that stretch, 5 in the last 2 games. Defensive back Trey Norwood paces the team and is tied for Big 12 lead with 4 picks, all coming over the last 5 games. And as I said here, Florida averages 388 yards passing on the season. That leads the country. The best Oklahoma has faced this season was Texas, 29th best in the country with a passing attack of 274 yards per game, 114-yard difference per game from what Florida does and what the best passing offense Oklahoma has faced so far this year. Oklahoma gave up only 287 passing yards in a 4-overtime thrilling win over Texas. So, the Sooners defense has showed up against the best they have faced this season. They did somehow give up 334 yards to Kansas State through the air in the second game of the season, their first loss of the season, and also gave up 322 to Iowa State in their last game in the Big 12 championship. So Oklahoma, their defense ranks 3rd nationally, leads the Big 12 by allowing just 90.6 rushing yards. So, Florida only averaging, or they are the 109th best in the country running the ball with 120 yards per contest. So Sooners have only allowed 1 running back this season to rush for 100 yards or more. That's Iowa State, Breece Hall. That ran for 139 yards, 2 touchdowns against Oklahoma in October. But in the rematch was held to just 79 yards in the Big 12 championship game. No other running back has rushed for more than 73 yards against Oklahoma this season. So the struggling run game for Florida, it's, I don't expect it to necessarily be fixed for this. I mean, look, we kind of thought the same thing last year going into the bowl game, and Michael P. Ryan goes off and goes crazy, hits some big runs. So, sometimes in bowl games you can't ever tell. But if we're looking at season trends, I wouldn't look for Florida's run game to magically just come up here. So unless, Emory Jones gets a whole lot of playing time, they dedicate to the run just a bit more. You start changing your play style a little bit just because you may be missing some receivers out there. Then you may see more rushing yards or try to rush some rushing attempts. Whether you have success or not is a whole different story. But you may see Florida run the ball a bit more according to kind of who's out there playing. Over the last 4 games, Oklahoma held Kansas, Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Iowa State to a combined 50.3% pass completion rate and recorded 8 interceptions. The last 4 games, teams are only completing 50% of their passes against them, and they got 8 picks. During that same span, Oklahoma allowed an average of just 77.8 rushing yards per game and just 2.4 yards per carry. So this is a defense that's playing really well. Believe it or not, coming into this game. 6 sacks over the season's first 3 games for Oklahoma. They have 30 over the last 7 games. A 4.3 average to lead the country since October 10th. Redshirt junior defensive lineman, second team Pro Football Focus All-American Isaiah Thomas has 8. Redshirt sophomore outside linebacker, first team Pro Football Focus All-American Nick Benito has 7.5 over the last 6 games. But those two combined for 15.5 sacks for the year. Isaiah Thomas, Nick Benito, 15.5 sacks. Junior defensive end Ronnie Perkins, he missed the first 5 games of the season. Still a third team Pro Football Focus All-American, 5.5 sacks, 9.5 tackles for loss in his last 5 outings. So, and he has at least a tackle and a half for loss in all 5 games that he's played. So that takes me back to a stat in the last episode. Oklahoma's found their pass rush. Florida has struggled in pass protection. Florida gave up 10 sacks the first 9 games and has given up 9 sacks the last 2 games versus LSU and Alabama. And now go against this Oklahoma front that's been playing well, getting to the quarterback, creating a whole lot of pressure. So, something else. I mean, if Florida's offense is not ready to play, missing some players, this will be one of their stiffest tests of the season. Going to be one of their stiffest tests of the season anyway, just because, stats say this Oklahoma defense playing pretty good right now. So kind of a little bit more on the Oklahoma defense. So second-year defensive coordinator Alex Grinch has Oklahoma ranked in the top 20 nationally in several categories this year. The following rankings reflect the teams that have played more than just 4 games, of course. You kind of have to put that out there with the weird 2020 of, you don't want stats to be skewed because teams only played 3-4 games. But anyway, rushing defense, they're ranked 3rd in the country. Sacks per game, 4th in the country. Opponent third down percentage, 5th in the country. Interceptions, 9th in the country. Passing efficiency defense, 10th in the country. Tackles for loss, 15th in the country. Opponent's first downs per game, 17th. Total defense, 20th in the country for this Oklahoma defense. But a lot of this is, what have you done for me lately? What have you done going into this game? Well, since November 1st, the last 4 games, Oklahoma top 10 nationally in several defensive categories. Sacks per game, 1st in the country. Interceptions, 2nd in the country. Passing efficiency defense, rushing yards per carry, rushing yards per game, all 3rd in the country for this Oklahoma defense. Points per game, 4th in the country in the last month, or in the last 4 games. Third down percentage, 5th. Pass completion percentage, 9th. Passing yards and yards per game, 10th. So in the last 4 games, this defense has been on a roll, playing really well. And look, a lot of time when you go into a bowl game, you also think, how does the layoff affect? Well, there's not much of a layoff. There's 9 days in between, for prep time, heading for the bowl game between the SEC championship or the Big 12 championship for Oklahoma, and then the bowl game. So if you're looking for, maybe something kind of just falling by the wayside because there's just so much time to prep, you lose your momentum. Probably not going to be the case here for like most bowl games doing that. So, how do you attack? That's the thing. You don't think you'll be able to find your run game. Who are you going to have out there playing? How does the offensive line hold up? How does the offensive line hold up against an Oklahoma defense that's been getting after the quarterback? Well, they did, I'd say, okay as many times as you were throwing it against Alabama in the SEC championship game. I'd say the offensive line did okay. The right side of the offensive line still had its issues. The left center to the left side did pretty well there. So I think you probably look for kind of something similar to that. But it all really just kind of depends on who's out there for Kyle Trask to throw to. How much do they want to get Emory Johnson playing time? Just so many variables in how you attack a defense that's playing pretty well when you on offense may be missing a lot of pieces, maybe trying to figure out some pieces in the game itself. There's not a lot of prep time for Florida. Mullen even said that they gave the team off the week of Christmas. So, it's I don't blame him for that. These bowl games are what they are at this point. I'm sure a lot of players, a lot of coaches just kind of want to get it over with. You want to go out there and see your team win, of course. But, man, just so many variables here for Florida. And I don't want to trying to make it sound like so many excuses. If Florida goes out there and doesn't play well. It's not what I'm trying to do here, at least for the Oklahoma side of things. If Florida doesn't win this game, they didn't want to be there, blah, blah, blah. I think that's part of it. But, it's not an excuse either way. And we'll go from there as far as looking at from the defense, the Oklahoma defense, and the Florida offense. So switch around to the other side of the ball. But before we do, a quick word from my friends at MyBookie. It's the most wonderful time of the year that can't end soon enough. We all deserve a win. We all deserve a little extra money in our pocket. And we all deserve to have a little fun. And the only place you're guaranteed to get all 3 is MyBookie. MyBookie is the only sports book that doesn't care whether you were naughty or nice this year. They got gifts for everyone. Bet the NFL, NBA, all your favorite college sports, all the bowl games out there, and more. NFL playoffs are coming up soon. Get in on the action. So sign up today and receive a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. That's a great place to start. And at MyBookie, there's always more. Huge deposit bonuses, epic giveaways, and free contests. It's simple. Sign up, enter promo code Gators, and get your deposit matched halfway up to $1,000. Head over to MyBookie to make the most of the holidays this year and strut into 2021 with cash in your pocket. This winter, bet with the best. Bet with MyBookie. So here we go, looking at the Oklahoma offense now. In the 7 games since their October 3rd loss at Iowa State, the Sooners ranked 4th among Power 5 teams with 43.6 points per game. But in their last 2, they've only scored 27 in each game, 27 against Baylor, 27 against Iowa State. So this was an offense, coming into the season, going through a lot of change, didn't start too well. In their 2 losses at the start of the season in conference play, they scored 35 versus Kansas State and then 30 versus Iowa State the next week. They turned it around after that, scoring 53 versus Texas. It was a 4-overtime game. 33 versus TCU. And then back-to-back, 62 versus Texas Tech, 62 versus Kansas, 41 versus Oklahoma State. And as I said before, only scoring 27 in their last 2 games. And despite returning just basically 13% of its individual offensive yards from last season, and starting a freshman quarterback, Oklahoma ranks in the top 20 nationally in several categories for offense this year. Points per game, 41.8. That ranks 8th in the country. Passing yards per pass attempt, 9.5. That ranks 8th. First downs per game, 9th with 25. Passing offense, 321.6. That's good for 11th in the country. And total offense, 475.8 yards per game, ranking 17th. So, this is the year that Oklahoma finally went with a quarterback originally signed with the Sooners after being dominated with transfers Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts. Rattler has thrown for at least 2 touchdown passes in 8 of the 10 games. They only had 1 versus Kansas, and has registered at least 3 touchdown passes in 4 games and had 4 in the Missouri State, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State games. Looking at kind of the skill players around him, only 10 games in his career. I mean, this is big time here. Wide receiver Marvin Mims has already set an Oklahoma freshman record with 8 receiving touchdowns. I mean, and this is a team, for now, we know, has been putting and churning out NFL type of wide receivers. Current NFL players Mark Andrews and CeeDee Lamb held the previous freshman record of 7 touchdown receptions, but Marvin Mims already has 8 this year. Mims leads the Big 12 and is tied for 15th in the country with his 8 touchdown grabs. No other freshman wide receiver nationally has more than 6. He leads the team with 583 receiving yards and is tied for the lead with 36 catches. His 7 receptions in the Big 12 title game against Iowa State were a career high, and his 101 receiving yards were his second highest total. So he's coming off probably his overall best game in the Big 12 championship. His 8 touchdown receptions have averaged 34.8 yards. 4 have gone for at least 45 yards. 45, 50, 58, 61-yard touchdown receptions from Mims. So we go back to the beginning of the year and Florida having trouble covering 1 receiver for a team. Of course, Devontae Smith in the last game versus Florida doing what he does, and no shame there really. But we've seen plenty of times this year where 1 wide receiver has been able to dominate a Florida defense. Marvin Mims is going to be that guy if it happens again in this bowl game. Senior Raimondra Stevenson, Oklahoma's leading returning rusher entering the year, but didn't make his season debut until 5 games ago at Texas Tech. He had 13 carries for 87 yards and a career-high 3 touchdowns in Lubbock before gaining 104 yards on 11 carries with 2 scores versus Kansas. Also had 60 yards on 4 catches there. And a career-high 141 yards against Oklahoma State this year. He had a 50 yards with a touchdown versus Baylor and 97 yards in the Big 12 championship win over Iowa State. He's averaging 95.8 yards rushing per game. 5.8 yards per carry right now. 5.8 yards per carry for Stevenson. Getting big plays, getting chunk plays, and a team-high 6 rushing touchdowns. He's caught 18 passes for 211 yards per game. So very well-rounded, dual threat running back, catch it out of the backfield, and running for pretty good chunk yardage here. I mean, just to kind of show his ability, his season debut last year, he ran 64 times for 515 yards and 6 touchdowns after transferring from junior college. His 8 yards per rush led the nation among players with at least 50 carries last year. So Stevenson can get a lot of yards, get big yards. When the season ended last year, he was averaging 8 yards per rush with at least 50 carries. And, he's doing it again this year, 5.8 yards per carry for Stevenson. So, they'll definitely run the ball. And that's kind of been the conception about Oklahoma, even in recent years with all these Heisman-winning quarterbacks. They're a balanced team. They still like running the ball. And it's been that way under Riley. Some of that also to do with quarterbacks running. If you just kind of look at percentage of run and pass, some of that is due to the quarterbacks also taking off and using their legs. But they still run the ball a lot with running backs. So kind of a misconception there that Oklahoma's this throw it, 50, 60 time a game team. They still like to run the ball. So kind of overall, this game may come down to Florida's third down defense. And I know that may put a knot in your stomach, make you not feel great when I mention third down defense. Florida's defense ranks 73rd in the country there. Oklahoma's offense is 63rd in third down offense. So it may come down to the Gator third down defense because they're going against a Sooner offense that's not too good on third down either. Something has to give there. Now, I know our confidence level probably isn't too high there. Now, the Sooners only convert 28% of their third downs, while Florida gives up 41%. Getting off to fast starts in each half might be indicative of winning this one as well. We know Florida has done okay at starting games on the first drive, but then the offense dying down a bit until later in the second quarter, but also dominating the start of the third quarter. Well, Oklahoma does well in both scenarios. Oklahoma has dominated the first quarter this season, outscoring Missouri State 31-0, Kansas State 7-0, Iowa State 10-3, Texas 10-0, TCU 10-0, Texas Tech 21-7, Kansas 14-0, Oklahoma State 21-17. Last couple games kind of slowed it down a little bit. Baylor leading 3-0 there, Iowa State 7-0, but combined 134-17 margin there of scoring in the first quarter, 134-17. So they get off to good starts. Sooners have limited opponents in their last 10 games to 610 total yards in the opening 15 minutes. So 61-yard average in the first quarter the Oklahoma defense has given up. Alex Grinch, the defensive coordinator there, he's been at Oklahoma 2 seasons now. OU has allowed opponents to score on their opening drive of a game just 4 times in 24 games. And 17 of the 24 opponent opening drives have lasted 5 plays or less. So they're doing a pretty good job of getting their offense right on the field and putting up points. And Spencer Rattler, quarterback here, he's been effective in the first half of games this year, throwing for 1,835 yards, and 16 of his 25 touchdowns have come in the first half of games. 16 of his 25 touchdowns have come in the first half of games. During its 7-game winning streak here, Oklahoma has outscored opponents 48-14 in the third quarter and has allowed just 338 total yards in the third quarter. So there you go. Where Florida has done really well this year coming out of halftime, Oklahoma looks like they do it too. Hard to say, what's going to give there. Pretty much kind of the theme of this. It's hard to say a lot of things for this game just because there's so many variables. And I've already kind of spoken about. Hard to say who's going to play. Hard to say who's going to play motivated. Hard to say, combine those things. It's hard to say what team we'll get. And, Oklahoma could be going through this too a bit. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see motivation for both teams. I don't know if there are any more up of play in this game than Florida is. But at least from the Florida perspective of things, you certainly don't want to lose 3 straight games to end the season. LSU, Alabama, Oklahoma. But this game, all by itself doesn't mean a whole lot. I really don't think this game has any bearing on the future of a Florida program. You want to win anytime you play, of course, but hard to get motivated with everything that is 2020 in general. A 2020 season where expectations were sky high at one point and come crashing down the last couple games. There wasn't a whole lot of excuse me there. Wasn't a whole lot of prep time like a normal bowl game. And I can honestly see where players just kind of want the season to be over with. But, and go back to Mullen's post-game comments in the SEC Championship where he really wouldn't even commit about playing a bowl game there. So, excuse me, guys. Something in my throat there. So, but yeah, I can just go back to Mullen's post-game press conferences in the SEC Championship game and not really committing to playing a bowl game. But we knew they were going to. Just had to get where they were going to play and all that. But I think you can kind of tell that it's been a long, taxing season here and just kind of want to get it over with. So is this the chance where we see a lot of younger players? I think so. We know there's no Kyle Pitts. Tony Grimes, maybe not out there too. Trask said he's going to play. But I can still see a scenario where, he's okay with Emory taking a lot of snaps. Emory Jones plays a lot of snaps. On defense, Marco Wilson, Kyrie Campbell, Jeremiah Moon has been injured. Sean Davis probably isn't going to play here either. So, Zach Carter, Brenton Cox, we'll see. Names are kind of starting to file out of who's going to be out there, who's not going to be out there. But, Campbell, Wilson, probably wouldn't look for those guys to play. Tony, Grimes, Pitts, we'll see. We know Pitts for sure isn't going to play. So, we'll kind of see the holidays have kind of, I think, slowed some things down as far as maybe putting it out there or anything like that. But I expect a good bit of opt-outs for Florida and not playing in this bowl game. Yeah, and I do think we'll see in this game where we can tell the staff just, we'll just see younger players in the game in scenarios where you can get a read on them. As I said, don't take too much from this, good or bad. I'm going to enjoy it because we're watching Florida one more time and see some of these guys one last time, but the analysis isn't going to be dire here. We'll discuss afterwards a vague look, but that's about it. So kind of really no prediction for this one. Too much unknown. But of course, I'd like to go see Florida win. Hope Florida shows up. I hope they show up motivated. Hope they're ready to play. Definitely don't want to get embarrassed, no matter how much it really means. But could be a good glimpse into the future. Take it as that. We won't really know how it all translates. I don't think you're taking much momentum right now. I mean, maybe if the season ended better, you could take some more momentum into 2021. But as far as this kind of late season, maybe if you lose 3 games in a row, ruining 2021 or anything like that, I don't think that. This bowl game kind of is what it is right now. Not to make it sound like an excuse or anything, but we'll see. It's just so many unanswered questions that we're not even going to know until the team runs out there. I think motivation's a big. Even if you are playing, if you didn't opt out, are you motivated to be out there? I think the younger guys could be. This is their time to shine. This is their time to get a chance to show the coaches what they can do to a certain point. And I know a lot of you fans out there and a lot of us podcast hosts and analysis and all that stuff have wanted to see a lot of younger players as well. So I think this might be a good chance for us to see those players. So we'll see. We'll see what ends up. But not much of a prediction here just because there's so many unknowns. And I'd hate to make a prediction based on not a whole lot of happening or knowing what's going to happen as far as players playing and motivation and it being just a bowl game in general. That doesn't mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. So that'll do it for this short Oklahoma Cotton Bowl preview here. Gators Breakdown. Thank you guys for a wonderful year here. Now, I wasn't able to do it live on YouTube or anything like that here. As I said, on vacation a bit, Christmas time vacation. But definitely going to throw this episode out here for you guys. So thank you very much for listening to this episode. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC.